Hello and welcome to my channel, I Want to Lose Gaming. In this video, I compare how endgame Ganyu, Klee, and Diluc perform in certain DPS scenarios. Before continuing, I need to emphasize that this is for entertainment purposes only. My intention is to simply show how these characters do in some of the current endgame situations. Every single situation in this game is different. If anything, by the time I finished preparing the clips for this video, I only managed to convince myself that all three of these characters are great at doing damage. Furthermore, it's extremely important to note that this is in whale territory, so for most people, the difference in DPS output isn't only not important, but it may even be hard to notice. With all that said and done, in this video, I focus on how much raw elemental damage each of these characters can output. Now before we hop into the side-by-side comparisons, I would like to show you each character's build, and also I need to emphasize that not all my characters are equal. My Ganyu is the most well geared with an R5 Amos bow, while Klee and Diluc both have Refinement 2, Lost Prayer, and Wolf's Gravestone respectively. To give you an idea, an R5 Amos bow increases Ganyu's charge shot damage by around 17% compared to an R2 Amos bow. As for their artifacts, they're all rocking some pretty powerful sets. Ganyu with her artifacts is just shy of 80% of her damage potential. Klee is at 77% of her damage potential and Diluc is at 76%. In terms of artifact quality, they are very comparable. And perhaps the most important caveat is that my Diluc is only at Constellation 3, compared to Constellation 6 on both Ganyu and Klee. So for the showcases that demonstrate my Diluc, keep that in mind. Fortunately, a friend of mine on Discord was gracious enough to send me a clip of his Constellation 5 Diluc with a Refinement 4 Wolf's Gravestone for later comparison and to help even the playing field. Anyway, let's get started with our favorite volunteers, the Cryo and Pyro Regisvine. Unfortunately, our plant friends don't have much HP, so they die extremely quickly. Regardless, it took Ganyu 4.52 seconds, Klee 7.22 seconds, and Diluc 12.42 seconds. Let's move on to a different scenario, and instead ask our second favorite volunteer, Dvalin. Dvalin demonstrates an interesting takeaway, and that is why ranged damage was really underrated. I will admit that I used to think the Claymore was the best weapon. It breaks shields, it's cool, and it can break ores. But there's a big problem with them, and that is you have to actually run up to your enemy to hit them. This is a scenario where, as a ranged character, you gain a ton of quote-unquote applicable DPS from not having to commute to your enemy. Thanks to Ganyu's ranged attacks, she didn't have to climb up its neck, and saved a ton of time. So what happens if we remove the time it takes for Klee and Diluc to climb the neck, and instead start timing from when each of the characters starts attacking? Well, Klee and Diluc become much more competitive to Ganyu, with Klee even eking out a victory here. Thanks to Ganyu's C6 being nearly useless, since you have to spend a lot of time moving your mouse slowly upward to shoot Dvalin's pointy thing, Klee is able to outshine Ganyu in this situation, and Diluc isn't too far behind. So now let's try this on something that won't die instantly. In this next setup, I fight the event Anemo cube with 200% HP. This way, we'll have an enemy that won't die too fast, so let's see how it goes. Similar to Dvalin, we have another scenario where being ranged helps a ton. The problem for Diluc here is twofold. One, he needs to be close to his enemy to hit them with the strong hit of his burst. Unlike Ganyu and Klee, who can both bypass the burst animation casting time, Diluc has to first run up to the cube and then use his burst. Not only that, but in a scenario where you can wait for your enemy to become vulnerable, Ganyu is able to charge a charge shot for free and front load that damage. Klee is somewhere in the middle, being a short mid-range character, but having a bypassable burst animation in this situation. This is another scenario where I realized that being ranged helps Ganyu tremendously. But this isn't exactly a fair scenario for Diluc. How about a fight that's more prolonged, so that Ganyu can't buffer her burst as efficiently, and Klee also has to deal with her long jumpy dumpty cooldowns as well as stamina problems. Let's see how these three fare against the Childe boss fight. And, surprise surprise, Ganyu's ranged bow attacks help her tremendously again. Before starting the mission, I thought this would be a more even fight. However, Childe starts really far away for his first form and his third form, giving Ganyu many free seconds of DPS. On top of that, Ganyu is able to casually shoot and dodge many of Childe's attacks, while Klee and Diluc have to run up to him and worry about taking damage. Also, having time between Phase 1 and Phase 2 to charge up and unleash a charge shot, and shooting Phase 3 Childe from across the map is surprisingly all heavily bow favored. Before I went into this fight, I thought Diluc's low cooldown and second burst would help him a lot, but again, it looks like all the ranged bow attacks favor our favorite little Coco Goat. Heck, even Klee is struggling to come close to Ganyu's performance here, but in this situation Klee is basically a melee character. As for Diluc, well, maybe we should ask a much stronger Diluc than mine to help even the playing field out. Since I often hear that Diluc and Xingqiu seem to be a baseline for DPS comparisons, an anonymous Leviathan on Discord was gracious enough to do this run with Diluc and Xingqiu. Let's take a look at the runs side by side. But before that, we can take a quick look at his Diluc stat. His Diluc plus Xingqiu combo was 8 seconds faster than my Diluc's run. But yet again, the curse of the Claymore needing to make physical contact with the opponent's face is haunting Diluc in this scenario. Diluc has to chase down both Form 1 and Form 3 Childe, and on top of that, he has to spend valuable time casting Xingqiu's water sword thing. Also, he has to dodge more attacks than Ganyu does. Ganyu, on the other hand, just sits across the map, outputting essentially optimal charge shot DPS. Despite that on paper, Diluc might be able to output the same amount of DPS that Ganyu can. In practice, charged range attacks are often more easy to apply optimally than Diluc's attacks are. But let's not give up on our boy Diluc just yet. Let's compare him to Ganyu with a Refinement 1 prototype Crescent. And also keep in mind that Childe has no weak point, so there is no prototype Crescent buff during this fight. There we go, the times are much closer. Despite having ranged attacks, Ganyu was only 9 seconds faster at beating Childe with the prototype Crescent. But then I started to wonder, how well does Diluc plus Xingqiu do if they didn't have to worry about running across the entire map to their enemies? In this next clip, I edit out all the time spent running up to Childe, and also all the time spent dodging Childe's attacks for Diluc. Since Ganyu pretty much doesn't have to dodge, it's only fair to do so. And there we go. In terms of actual DPS output, Diluc plus Xingqiu can keep up with our prototype Crescent yielding Coco Goat. Now some of you might be curious as to how a non-C6 Ganyu performs in comparison. So here's a quick clip against the Pyrovine. Without her C6 nuke option, Ganyu's performing at around Klee's level of output. Needless to say, this is not definitive proof that any character is better than another character. While gathering the clips for this video, I sought to answer the question for myself of who the best DPS is. Now that I've made this video, I have even less of an answer than before I started. And this is mostly because every single situation is different, and you should simply use who you like the most. Perhaps one takeaway I got from all this is that I severely underestimated the power of bow attacks. The ability to charge a mini nuke while you wait for the enemy, and the lack of necessity to run across the entire map was far more valuable than I expected. So after all this, do I think Diluc is bad? Not at all. Diluc will, until the foreseeable future, be everyone's best option as a support character to kill the 3 groups of triangles that the electro-hypostasis creates. Until we have someone that can do that so consistently, Diluc will always have a special place in my party. Besides his support capabilities, he's still a great main DPS as well. As always, thanks for watching. With Xiao's impending arrival, you can expect me to do a pre-release analysis of him, and also to analyze his weapon and artifact options. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments below, and don't forget to smash those subscribe and like button. This is I Win to Lose, signing out.